close, crucial games for the most part in the afternoon slot. We got to get to the most important, or the big time one, the Packers and the Saints. This was the first Packer game since that incidental Monday Night Football, and the Saints, we all know they're 0-3. They were desperate for a win. Otherwise, they'd be falling in a 4-game hold to the Falcons, who are currently at 4-0. The Saints and Packers, it was what we thought it would be for the most part. I guess a shootout between both teams, or it wasn't really much of it wasn't as much of a shootout as I thought it was going to be, but it was still a really high-paced offensive game at least for the first half anyway. But Aaron Rodgers had a quick start, 12-yard touchdown to James Jones, 7-0, and then followed by Breeze tying it up. And then Green Bay would pack on 2 more scores thanks to Aaron Rodgers. They either throw 3 first-half touchdowns, and then the Saints countered only one of those with a touchdown to Darren Sproles, making it 21-14. And then they would drive. And then the third quarter, this is where a game got really chippy and interesting. And I like these kind of games for the most part. Breeze drove all the way down the field, and then they get stopped on third down, then they kick the field goal, but they call a penalty on Green Bay for unnecessary roughness or whatever it was. And it kind of looked like the Saints pushed Raji before Raji pushed the Saint, but either way, and then the Saints 3 plays later, the Saints ended up kicking a field goal anyway, so it didn't do any good or much better. And then the Packers would then drive down the field, but only for Rodgers to get his eye poked. And then on the following play, fumble on the handoff exchange to Benson, and it was recovered by the Saints, Michael Jenkins, and it was followed up by an 80-yard touchdown pass to Joseph Morgan, making it 24-21. And then a field goal making it 27-21, and then we all thought the Saints maybe pull away, but no, it's the same old Saints defense because Aaron Rodgers went to work and threw an 11-yard touchdown pass to Jordy Nelson. And then here's what got the crowd booing was on the following kickoff return, Sproles fumbled. And the Packers wanted to challenge it, but they were out of challenges. But I don't know if they would have won anyway because while Sproles definitely fumbled, there was no clear cut take on who had the ball. So it probably would have been a lost challenge anyway. But the Packers were out of challenge, so they couldn't challenge that. Then Breeze slowly, methodically were driving down the field. They would kick the field goal, but they called it back on a holding play. Then they tried to kick a 53-yarder, and then the Packers went offside, so it was a 48-yarder that shanked left, no good. And then Aaron Rodgers would make a clutch completion on a freakishly nice catch by Jones, and that is what ended the game, 28-27. The frustration for the Packers, as much as they went through, it felt really good to see them get the win. And now they go to the Indianapolis to take on the Colts next week, and the Packers really needed this win. I know the Saints probably needed a lot more, especially with the fact that the Falcons are probably going to run away with the division now. But Green Bay really needed this win, especially to keep up with everyone else in the division, and just in case the Vikings are actually as good as they appear so far this season. So, a huge win for the Packers. As for the Saints, another disappointment for the Saints, and they're 0-4. Nobody would have ever predicted that. They are at home next Sunday night against the Chargers. And while the Chargers are 2-0 on the road, you got to think the Saints have got to win sometime. And I don't think Breeze wants to lose to a guy he used to be ahead of in the depth chart when he was in San Diego. So I think the Saints finally pick up their first win next week. I'm not sure, though. It depends on the defense, though. And it really does. I mean, the Saints just look like a lost cause right now. But now let's go on to Miami, Arizona, a game that showed a spectacular performance by Ryan Tannehill for the most part, despite a few turnovers. Dolphins got out to a hot 13-0 start, the only touchdown coming from Jaworski Lane, and it would be that way at halftime. Then third quarter, Kevin Cobb, who only threw for 109 yards in the first half, marched down the field and threw a 3-yard touchdown pass to Fitzgerald, making it 13-7. And then the quarter would go by, not much else really happened until Cobb drove down the field for a 46-yard touchdown pass to Andre Roberts, making it 14-13. But then Tannehill finds Brian Hartline all alone on a great play action fake, throws an 80-yard touchdown pass, and it's 21-14. And then we're all thinking same old Cardinals, but no, 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 no. Dolphins would get the ball back, but Ryan Tannehill would fumble, and then Kevin Kolb had one last chance on 4th and goal, and he would complete it to Andre Roberts for Roberts' second touchdown of the day, and then it was sent into overtime, and then both teams went through, and then both teams couldn't get anything going in their first drive. So the Cardinals, when they did get the ball back, they were driving down. Jay Lilly nails a 46-yarder, and that ends the game. And the Cardinals go 4-0, and the Dolphins fall to 1-3 after a 24-21 overtime. This was the second straight overtime loss for the Miami Dolphins, and this was a brutal one, because Ryan Tannehill, he made a few mistakes, but he threw for 400 plus yards, and that was just a disappointing loss for Miami. But they fought hard. But now they're last place at 1-3 in the AFC East. They take on the Cincinnati Bengals at Cincinnati next week. As for the Cardinals, they are looking to go 5-0 on Thursday Night Football against the St. Louis Rams. Exciting times to be an Arizona fan at this point. Let's go to Washington, Tampa Bay, a game that looked like it was going to be a runaway for Washington as they jumped out to a 21-3 lead thanks to a weird fumble recovery by Pierre Garçon in the end zone, making it 7-3. And then RG3 would get a 5-yard touchdown, and Alvin Morris, the new hotshot running back, a 39-yard touchdown run, making it 21-3. It would be 21-6 at halftime on Connor Barth making a career best 57-yard field goal. And then third quarter, Josh Freeman was going to work and gave it to Vincent Jackson, the former Charger wideout, for a 7-yard touchdown, making it 21-13. And they were sticking in it as RG3 would fumble, and then Cundiff would miss his third field goal of the game, and then Josh Freeman drove it down using Vincent Jackson a lot, as well as Mike Williams, and it would set up for a LeGarrette Blount touchdown. And they would fail on the 2-point conversion, but the Bucs would get the ball back later in the game, only down 2. Barth kicks the 47-yarder, and it's good. 1-point lead, minute 42 to go. RG3 would just march down the field with seemingly at ease. And then the questions came up. It was a 41-yard attempt. Billy Cundiff missed 3 field goals prior to this attempt. Does he make it? Yes, he does. And the Redskins will pull away with a 24-22 road victory over the Buccaneers. Tough break for Tampa Bay. They came to come back all the way, only to fall short at the very end. Cundiff, you got to feel good for Cundiff, I guess, but man, that was a tough victory for Washington. And now they have a home game against the undefeated Falcons next week. Tampa Bay must carry on. They have, who do they play next week? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, they have a bye week next week. That's why I couldn't find it. And they take on the Chiefs the following the bye. So I think they gotta fix out a couple kinks before starting to compete starting to talk about playoff contention. But anyway, let's move on to Cincinnati at Jacksonville. Blaine Gabbert after following a Bengals field goal, Jacksonville would score a touchdown to Mercedes Lewis, making it 7-3. But that would be the only lead they had the entire game as Andy Dalton went to work, as he ended up getting a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, making it 17-7 at the break. Scobie chips in a field goal in the third, 17-10. And then Dalton was just too good on this day, making it 24-10. Gabbert would throw a pick, but Bengals only capitalized with a 27-10, but it didn't really mean much as Jones-Drew was only held to 38 yards on the day. Andy Dalton was too good. Blaine Gabbert just couldn't get much done as he got sacked 6 times. And Jarvis Green Ellis put up an 82-yard rushing performance. AJ Green was too much for Jacksonville's defense. And Cincinnati walks away with a 27-10 victory over Jacksonville. And they will take on the Miami Dolphins next week. Bengals looking pretty good. 3-1. They won their second straight road game. And now they're going back home to take on the Dolphins. Meanwhile for Jacksonville, 0-2 at home, now facing the Bears next week. It is at home, but so far it's not looking so good for Jacksonville. So, and last but not least, the Broncos, Raiders. As it started out, Peyton Manning got up firing first drive 7-0. Then it was only 10-6 at halftime as both teams would trade a couple field goals. But Peyton Manning in the third quarter just caught fire. The whole Broncos team, Carson Palmer was frustrated, and Manning would tack on two passing touchdowns, one to Eric Decker and one to Lance Ball. They would also have a Willis McGahee touchdown as well. And then a couple field goals later in the fourth quarter, and the Denver Broncos just absolutely obliterated the Oakland Raiders 37-6. And the Raiders, they're 1-3, tied for third with Kansas City. Denver stuck in the middle, second place, one game behind San Diego. This is probably the Broncos that everyone was expecting to see. They were given a lot of high expectations, and I think for the first time all season, this is what people were expecting from Peyton Manning and company. Manning threw 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. McGahee had 112 yards and a touchdown, and I think that's a good strat. Manning did throw 38 times, but I think the strategy just run the ball a lot for Denver, and then let Peyton Manning take care of himself. And as for the Raiders, their defense is. By the way, the Denver Broncos have a showdown with Tom Brady next week as they take on the Patriots in Gillette. Anyway, let's go back to the Raiders. Their secondary, well, it's not so much. Oh, the secondary looks pretty bad, but their offense isn't much better. As McFadden was only held to 34 yards rushing, 4 yards receiving. Palmer only threw 202 yards, and he didn't throw. They didn't. The sad part is that the Raiders did not turn the ball over. It's just they couldn't get any production out of it, and I think a lot of it falls on the offensive coordinator Greg Knapp. And they do have a bye week next week, which is probably good because they're going to need to work some kinks out if they want to compete in the AFC West, and especially compete in the team they follow the bye week with because in week 6 they play the Falcons. But that will cap up the afternoon. Be sure to come back tonight for my Sunday night recap.